lap here as we get ready for the latest race in the Porsche Sprint Challenge GT3 Cup Series. We are here at VIR, Ryan, with the roller coaster Oak Tree Horseshoe, all the great corners ready to give these drivers a challenge.
It is a phenomenal circuit here, Joe, that's for sure. Love coming to VIR. The drivers do too because of that challenge that you mentioned. This place opened in the late 1950s and has been challenging some of the best road racers in the world ever since. It's a wonderful venue, and it's a great setting for a pair of races here. Crucial point in the championship, and we look at now how this field will line up to go with Jared Thomas on yet another pole position, edging out Paul Bocuse.
Indeed. So row one, then followed by Joel Johnson starting on the inside of the second row, and Mark Bowden to his outside for Fall Line Motorsports. Looking good today. You've got David Musial starting in fifth in Forward Motorsports Machine. Ruckus Racing has Scott Blend starting in the P6 position. That takes us back to row number 4, Conrad Geis, with a great qualifying considering the wreck that he had in testing that totaled his original car. Tony Melito starts 8th for Fall Line Motorsports next to him. From there, row 5 sees Tim Kesman starting in the 9th position. John Gilliland for Kelly Moss Racing, Ryan, will round out your top 10.
That's the starting grid through 5 rows. On row 6, Niels Meisner. He's the points leader in 991, but he does not have the pole position here today. He'll have Jody Miller starting alongside out of the 992 Masters class. Row number 7 belongs to Therese Lalou, part of the 992 Pro-Am class. She told me, I'm learning this track here this weekend. It's a tough place, and she is perfectly happy to run mid-pack if that's what the end result happens to be, with Rob Walker from JTR Motorsports Engineering starting in the 14th starting position today. To row 8 we go now. Dave Musial Sr. gets the start in the 14th position next to Frank Vitiello, who's had a wild ride once already this weekend, going back to practice yesterday. They'll start in row 8, 14th and 15th, respectively. And I think before too much longer here, Joe, we're about to turn this field loose because they're already 2 by 2, and the pace car has jetted away.
Indeed. So coming out of Hogpen, they're getting ready to start this race now. Just real quick, cycling through the remainder of our field to bring you the action here today. And coming around to that start-finish line, they wait patiently for the flag. And there it is. Green flag is out. Jared Thomas is on the loud pedal. Ooh, it's a very good jump from Johnson on Paul Bocuse. They're in 2 different classes, but this is not good if Paul wants to try and challenge for the lead, with Jared having led for much of this season down into turn 1. Will he be able to hold back Joel Johnson into there as we hop on board with Freiberg, who is starting from the back of the field after a penalty in that 2:22?
That's right. She lost all of her qualifying time. She had already picked up 2 spots by the time they got to the braking zone for turn 1. On board with Ashley right here, the reigning 991 champion, putting this car through its paces and already up a number of positions, working to the outside of left bend. Wow, tough place to make a pass, but Ashley knows she's got to go, and she's got to go now if she's going to have a good result here today, starting from out back.
Yeah, being a champion in those 991s, I'm sure she knows how they can handle these corners inside and out. And the 992 should be able to overtake relatively quickly if she does it right. Meanwhile, they're coming up through the climbing S's now, heading towards South Bend. So far, so good. Already into Oak Tree, and Jared Thomas doing the things that he usually does as we got a car off. Didn't see if they actually managed to hit the wall, but they're definitely kicking up a lot of dust.
Able to rejoin. That's the bright green car that pops right into view right there, middle of the screen. Looks like it's no harm, no foul. Just a lot of track position loss, but that could have been big.
That was Scott Blend, unfortunately, losing a lot of that track position, as you mentioned. And up at the front, that gap now up to about 6 or 7 car lengths over Joel Johnson. So Bocuse did not manage to hold back the Masters driver in that 227. If you're wondering how to tell them apart, when you see the number plates, the blue are the Masters, the white are the Pro-Am, and then the red are the 9-1s.
Wow, what a season it's been already for Jared Thomas. 5 wins. The only result that wasn't a win was a runner-up finish at Circuit of the Americas race number 1. Starts on pole position yet again and has a massive lead after 1 lap. It's up to over 2 seconds over Joel Johnson. What a great start from Jared Thomas, the native of Vernon, Indiana.
And how about Tim Kesman already on the podium for the Masters after he gets promoted a position from the problems for Scott Blend. So that'll help him out tremendously. Wonder how far up Ashley was able to go. Looks like 18th overall in that 222 machine. So definitely did a lot of the heavy lifting that first lap around. We'll check in with her occasionally to see how that is going. And I think I just saw Bocuse on that overhead shot managed to get by Johnson and into the S's. That was brave.
Yeah, high commitment around the outside for Paul Bocuse. That was big because that moves him into second overall. It's not a pass for class position, but it puts him now with the only car out in front being the class leader, the overall leader, Jared Thomas. You mentioned the start from Freiburg. She's up a lot of positions in the overall order, but only made up one spot in class. She runs 7th in Pro-Am in the 992 class. Currently still a lot of work to do to get to the next car in class. That's Eric Lapp. And then you get to Therese Lalou, who runs in the 12th spot overall, 5th in Pro-Am.
That looks like Vitiello just in front of her in the 248. The bright red rear bumper reattached to that car, thankfully, after it had gone missing in his practice accident. Under braking, gaining a lot of ground and getting even closer down through the middle of the corner as well, as there's no place to go through the roller coaster. She's going to have to wait patiently.
Yeah, can't go side by side here, but you can set up a pass. Looked like she was trying to time it, but had to lift out of the throttle, got balked a bit. Now, though, in that slipstream is closing in on Vitiello. This is not a pass potentially for class position, but it does then bring her to within one car of the next car in class, and it looks like Freiburg is through. She was able to make that pass stick down into turn 1.
Next up is a car that is for position, Eric Lapp. So she'll finally be able to catch up to someone and get one that will give her a little bit better points in the championship. With her being in third, this is going to be an important race. We often talk about that consistency. Almost wonder if it'll be damage limitation, Ryan.
Well, to some degree, just being here this weekend is damage limitation. Ashley had the best result of her season in race 1 at Circuit of the Americas, had misfortune in race 2, but even greater misfortune when the weekend ended because her ride went away with MDK Motorsports. Just couldn't find the funding to keep things going there with very little time to get it done. Did put a deal together to join Kelly Moss here this weekend. They've got sponsorship. It looks like it's a pretty sorted situation for the rest of the season. That's huge because she's third in points, and she very nearly wasn't on the grid here this weekend.
That's Musil there, Dave Musil 2.0, being chased by Tim Kesman down along Madison Avenue. That's not for class position, but for 5th overall. Just impressive stuff from Tim coming in and showing his pedigree here as he's going to try around the outside coming through the roller coaster, but can't get the job done. Great defense there from the 225.
And again, this is one of those difficult situations. The car is the same, but these are two different classes with the 992 Pro-Am and the 992 Masters. The only difference between the two is the age of the driver. Those with a bit more life experience, they find themselves in that Masters class. Musial is a bit on the younger side, so he finds himself in the Pro-Am class. And he's stuck mixing it up with someone who really this result doesn't matter in terms of the amount of points that will get paid at the end of this event.
It looks like he was overtaken. And so, yeah, it's kind of that, do I bother to fight him? But at the same time, it also unfortunately puts him under threat from Conrad Geis, who I think is the next car back. And that is for class position. Dave Musil is still on the podium as it sits now, but if he gets overtaken, he won't get to spray the champagne. It's still Bocuse up at the front behind Jared Thomas with your top two. The bad news for Paul, he got by Joel. He still was half a second slower that last lap compared to Jared.
Yeah, I was checking that too. That was what I was curious about. What would Paul's pace be when he got into clean air? And he's settling into a rhythm, but to your point, Jared Thomas ran a 150.1. Paul ran a 150.7. So there is a pretty big difference in their pace. And those two are the only drivers right now running in the 150 bracket. Everyone else 151 or above. Checking in on the Ashley Freiburg story, she has made up a couple more places. She passed Eric Lapp into 6th in class. She also passed Dave Musial Sr. to get up to 15th overall, and she's right on the tail of the next car, which would be Rob Walker out of the Masters class. She's got some work to do to get to Therese Laloux, who's now 3 cars up the road, the next car for class position.
We often talk about the liveries on these cars, and Walker's is one of my personal favorites, made to look like Herbie the Love Bug of all homages that he is paying. But it's no laughing matter right now, since those two are in a hard fight for overall position. We're going to hop back on board with Ashley, chasing down the main straight once again, just going by our commentary box. She's showing her nose. If I know Rob, I don't think he's going to fight this one too hard.
Doesn't look that way. He gives her the inside line into that turn 1 brake zone, and Freiberg throws it in there, picks up that position right on the tail of Scott Blend in a car that I called green earlier. I think highlighter yellow probably would be a bit more apropos. You can't miss the car, that's for sure. And I'll tell you what, Scott's done a great job to get back in a rhythm. He had that wild moment in the Oak Tree corner on the opening lap, but he seems to have settled back into a rhythm nicely.
He's definitely stopped the bleeding. Unfortunately, he hasn't really overtaken any cars since then. He got overtaken by Therese Laloux, who is in a different class, and he's just been kind of waiting patiently in the mid-pack. We still have 26 minutes plus a lap left to go, so maybe he could turn it on a little bit later. Now Ashley Freiberg is going to approach and see where she can get by. Therese Laloux is going to be for position up in front of Blend.
We should note as well that there is a third class in this race. It's for the previous generation 991 version of the Cup car, and Niels Meissner, he did not start on pole position today, but he has made his way back to the front. He's been the man to beat. He's now second in class, just outside of the top 10 overall, while Niels Meissner has worked his way up into the 8th overall position.
Maybe a bit of a false dawn for the rest of the 991 cars, is like we said, Niels usually fighting with Charlie Peter, but Peter is not here this weekend, so Niels has essentially free run of the playground if he can just keep the pace up and try to run away from his rivals. We complete the latest lap, still watching on board with Ashley coming down into turn 1. Don't think she's close enough to Scott. She's giving notion that she might want to try it, but then comes back. It's a long ways around that corner, and you are on the throttle as early as you can typically, but car is still stationary. Now, I didn't think he went off with enough power to reach that green barrier, but the fact that he is unable to get it moving is not a good sign. We already had 2 cautions in our Cayman race just a couple hours ago. Now it's starting to creep forward, and maybe we'll be able to stay green.
Nevertheless, this is really disappointing for Scott Blend, who comes into the weekend second in points at 992 Masters. Picked up a win from pole in the first race at Barber. He's a former International GT class champion going back to last year, and making the step into Porsche Sprint Challenge here this season. It's had a really good year so far with 4 podiums, but it does not look like this will be a day to remember.
Saw a little bit of Bowden flying by. He still sits in second behind Joel Johnson, only about a second and a half back, so I think he's still keeping him kind of in touch here in his battle for what could be the Masters win. That is Ashley going side by side with Therese Laloux. Oh, but she got squeezed out coming down past the start-finish line. Thankfully, she had the wisdom to back out of that.
Yeah, that is for class position, and Therese goes on the defensive here, covering off that inside line as Ashley looks to find a way by. Therese now actually a bit aggressive here as she pulls to the outside of Melito. That's passing a 991 car. And great commitment there around the outside. Just threw it into NASCAR Bend and picked up the spot. Gives her a buffer on Freiberg, at least for a couple of corners.
Well, and we keep talking about these cars not battling for points positions, but they can act as quite a buffer, even if they are both 992s. And at times, they could be strategic if you are aggressive like we just saw, trying to make that overtake.
Great views from high above VIR. Jared Thomas leads. He's now got 6 seconds at hand over Paul Bocuse. Joel Johnson with a nice strong run. He's third overall, but leading in the Pro-Am class. And then Mark Bowden, we told his story in qualifying earlier, but this is a guy with great memories of racing here at VIR. Back in 2019, he won an SCCA national championship here. He ran multiple classes that year at the SCCA runoffs, and he medaled in 3 of them. So top 3 in 3 classes nationally at the runoffs here at VIR back in 2019. Longtime driver for Fall Line Motorsports, who he drives for here this weekend as well, of course.
Seeing a bit of a train begin to form in the mid-pack. I think that is potentially Conrad Geis at the front of it. Well, that's Meissner, and that must be Geis just behind. As John Gilliland, Jody Miller, Tony Melito, all in this group. Ashley now trying to go by Tony Melito, who's going to stay off to the left-hand side. Look at what that did. That one lap behind that car. Now she's got to make up. Let's see what the gap is here. About half a second.
Yeah, trying to catch up to Therese Laloux again. You're exactly right. Just over a half a second. But look how quickly she's starting to reel Therese back in. Teresa, a West Coast campaigner, first trip out here to VIR, and she said, Ryan, this place is tough. I've been learning all weekend long, but hasn't quite got to the point where she's feeling super comfortable right now, though very much in the fight with one of the top drivers in the series, Ashley Freiberg.
Therese was kind enough to let me hop a ride on their golf cart during the track walk, so I didn't have to go on foot the whole way around, and was privileged enough to get to listen to her coach really go into detail on every corner on what will help her find a bit of speed and some of the tricks around this place. And there was a lot more than I thought there would be, certainly, to get some more speed out of it. Right now, she's holding on to that 11th overall, but that looks like that.
I think it would have been that car there, and I could not pick up who that would have been. But someone had an off-track moment there in Oak Tree.
May have been Musial Sr., I think, but we'll try and get that confirmed as we switch back to this pack and Ashley on Therese once again. It's always neat to me to see the camaraderie between the drivers, because when Ashley was looking for her ride, I saw Therese on social media in the comments cheering her on, celebrating that she got her ride back. So, yes, they fight hard on the track, but off the track, they're good chums.
On board again with Ashley. She's got Therese right in the crosshairs here. This is the best passing zone on the track. Turn number 1, not close enough to make a move this time. And you talk about the people that make racing possible. For Ashley Freiberg, it's all been about putting the sponsorship partners together to make this a reality. And a lot of credit goes to David Brulé, longtime racer himself, but someone who has been a benefactor for many in the racing world over the years, jumping on board. David's wife just started a cosmetics company, and they thought this would be the perfect synergy to team up with Ashley Freiberg here and help keep her in the car when her initial chance with MDK dried up after Circuit of the Americas.
She got a good exit there coming into the snake, and I wondered if she would be brave enough to go side by side into the S's, but no dice there. I think that was probably wise in that situation. They're catching up to Jody Miller, another Masters car, so not in class with them. But we've already seen Therese use one of these Masters or 991 cars as a pick. Can she do that again and give herself a buffer?
Jody Miller, campaigner out of Vero Beach, Florida, third in Porsche Sprint Challenge 992 AM, as it was known last year, has one podium on the season, 5th in points. Having a nice, solid weekend here at VIR right now.
I just noticed that Race Control has a message on our timing and scoring. Incident between 152 and 127 will be reviewed post-race. That's Meissner and Melito. So our leader in second place. Will we see a change of the order before the prizes are handed out here? This is going to be interesting to watch with that threat hanging over the 152.
Now you have to put that in the back of your mind for now. That has not been adjudicated yet. Like you said, Joe, that's going to be reviewed post-race. So can't let one mistake lead to a second or a third, and that's maybe jumping the gun a little bit to assume that there even was a mistake. That's not been determined to this point. But Niels will put that in the back of his mind and just get down to business. Right now, he's leading his class on the road as this battle continues to rage. This is just great stuff with Freiberg and Lelou here as they come into the high-speed part of the track. She's got to run, but where do you go with it? This is a narrow part of the racetrack, Joe.
Yeah, I think she just lifted there, kind of knowing that she was too close to the back of the car, did not want to spin her, especially how quick they go under the bridge with no place for them to escape. So, unfortunately, she keeps getting those good runs right in that section, and it just doesn't give her the opportunity. But I am seeing that yellow and blue car of Therese Lelou poking its nose back and forth, trying to see if there's some place that she can overtake on Jody Miller. I truly think that she's trying her best to try and give herself some comfort zone compared to Erin Ashley.
I think she's under pressure, though. Ashley was right there behind in the run towards the roller coaster. Let's see if she was close enough to pop out a line. Doesn't look like she is. It's the black car chasing the blue and yellow machine into this roller coaster section. This camera shot does a great job to show just the level of elevation change through this section. It's twisting, it's plunging down the hill. Freiberg right in the tire tracks, and maybe this is the time that she's timed that run. I'll tell you what, though, from this onboard shot, it looks like Lelou's got the edge down the straightaway.
Yeah, she's pulling away bit by bit. Such frustration, I'm sure, under the helmet for Ashley Freiberg, who's been working on this for some time. But the higher you go up the order, Ryan, it's always going to be that little bit harder to pass. Did she get underneath for a second, though?
Looked like she wanted to.
Oh, she's very, very close. This is in a NASCAR bend now. Exiting out, you can sometimes see passes down here into the left hook, but can't get the overlap that she needs. Or does she? She's side by side, round the outside, gets it done. Woo!
Fantastic stuff from Ashley Freiberg, up into sixth now. Make that fifth now in that class. That was awesome. Just was able to work on Therese.
Turn one, car 268 is off course at the exit of turn one. 268 is continuing slowly. Turn one is clear.
In a Cayman as well as in the Cup car. And he's had some issues in both, but sounds like he's been able to continue on. How about that move, though, from Freiberg? And immediately she's on the tail of Jody Miller. On to the next one with under 15 minutes plus one lap to go.
Now, this is Miller, as you said. John Gilliland also masters. Niels Meissner, a 991 car. Then it's up to Conrad Geis.
Wow.
And I think that was facilitated a little bit by Jody.
It might have been. I mean, it's going to take some cooperation to make that work side by side in that part of the racetrack. Jody decided he didn't want any part of that and wisely gave way. Ashley's got a head of steam, and she is coming to the front. No question about that. Next target here is Gilliland, and she's already sizing John up.
So will John be as polite? Again, not in her class. Doesn't need to fight it, but he probably is running his own battle here as he looks inside of Meissner. Ashley goes around the outside of John Gilliland. Doesn't quite have the grip out there. Another big snap of the steering wheel, as I'm sure there's getting to be quite a bit of marbles and gunk out off the racing line.
Didn't look pleasant out there, did it? Ashley has her hands full. She's made the outside move work in this section of the track once before. We saw that on the last lap. Again, just putting tons of pressure on Gilliland that time. Might have dropped a wheel, kicked up some of that dust, but couldn't pull alongside, which means now you're stuck pretty much single file through this section of the track. We saw Paul Bocuse make a move earlier in the going, but that's a pretty rare thing to go side by side through here. And Ashley will just be working on setting up that move when they get down to this part of the track right here at Oak Tree.
I think this might be, yeah, that is Musil behind Tim Kesman, but also ahead of Conrad Geis. Conrad actually looking to try and fight David for that podium position, it appears. Last time across the line, looks like that was about 1.3 seconds, but that looked a lot closer when we saw it. And Therese Lou kind of weaving back and forth behind Jody Miller, unhappy that she's still stuck behind.
Yeah, it's interesting because she was, let's say, a little bit less than sanguine when I talked to her about her chances in this race today and said, look, I'm not going to take any risks. We're going to just make sure we have a good result. But it's a funny thing, right? The visor goes down, and all of a sudden there's a position to be gained. Teresa's going to go try and get it. She's been right in the middle of these battles all race long, and I imagine she's having a pretty good time. It looks like Freiburg to the inside here. Is that right on Gilliland?
It is indeed. Gilliland didn't get as good of a run. He's not going to fight it. Now, this one's going to be a different case because Meissner, again, in the 991, so that is physically a different class of car compared to what Ashley is driving. Should be the slower class, but it is the leader in the 991s, and he's consistently mixed it up, has Niels, with the 992 cars as he breaks quite early there down into the left hook, kicking dust up again through the right-hander. I noticed that last lap as well. That seemed some of the cars getting a bit aggressive with those curbs.
I'd caution Ashley, if I was on the radio with her, to be patient, get a good run out of Oak Tree, because that 992 car's got about 25 more brake horsepower than the 991. And if you can get in the slipstream here down Madison Avenue, get a good run out of Oak Tree, she should be able to make that pass more easily than we've seen some of these others up against more comparable equipment the last few positions that she's gained.
I know we've been giving her a lot of screen time, but Jared Thomas has just continued to run away up at the front. It's up to, I believe, about 12 seconds now over Paul Bocuse. And, there you can see it now updated on the timing tower, 12.7 seconds. Jared going back to the form that we were used to seeing before COTA, where he could really just stretch his legs out over the rest of the field.
For sure. That fight, though, for the podium spots in Masters has continued to be really, really good. Johnson and Bowden only half a second apart. Kesman back 12 seconds behind them. And then that Musial Geis fight, that's for 6th and 7th overall. That's where Freiburg really would like to get. If she can clear Meissner here, I'm not sure there's enough time to catch Geis and Musial, but she's going to try. She needs to find 10.5 seconds in the next 10 minutes plus one lap.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if that last lap will be representative because she was held up behind Niels for a decent portion of it. It was a 1:53.6. Her best lap is a 51.2. So if she ran, let's say, split the difference in the 52s, that's actually still about a second quicker than David and Conrad. But I think you're right that she'll probably run out of time. She's going to need some help of them battling, I think, to catch up.
Well, this is the first time she's had clear track the entire race. She started out back and has been in traffic this whole time, so I'm not sure we know what the pace of that car in race trim is yet. And we don't have any qualifying times either to look back on because those got deleted. I can't remember what she was running in qualifying trim, but yeah, she'll be hard-pressed to get there, but, let's not count it out, especially if this race stays green the rest of the way. She could put her head down and try and chase those two who are, to your point, Joe, embroiled in a fight of their own.
Just to give the audience an idea of the at the front, we were talking about his pace. His best lap, which is currently the fastest of the race, is a 49.8. Nobody else has broken under 150, and Paul Bocuse, his best, a 50.4. So more than half a second difference on the personal best of our top two.
Now, those two are in a class of their own, aren't they? And that's been the case most of the season. Those two have been the top two. I mean, you look at the points, they're the top two in points. There have been others that have jumped up. Ashley Freiberg's won a race. We've seen Nick Schaefer. Oh, sorry, he's in the Cayman class. My mistake. But we've seen a couple others that have run up there at the front from time to time. But by and large, it's been Jared Thomas, Paul Bocuse that have been showing the way.
This is Niels Meissner we're riding on board with. 10th overall in what is supposed to be the slower class car. Next nearest Tony Melito down in 14th at this stage. I don't even know how many seconds are between them right now. Granted, if you missed it a little bit earlier, there is an incident being reviewed post-race that involved the two of them. We don't know much more information than that, so it's hard to say what exactly will happen there, what is likely to happen. This is on board with the leader, finally giving him some screen time. Hasn't really merited it up until this point as he comes out to complete another lap.
He's been near perfect this season, hasn't he? 5 wins, 1 runner-up finish through 6 races, and he's now 7.5 minutes away from getting back into the winner's circle. Has a 49-point lead.
Off course at turn 1, preparing to continue.
That's Daniel Ammon, who, once again, I think this is the second time having a spin in turn 1 in this race. I wonder if the damage that he got on that car kind of compromised some aspect of it, and it's just not handling right, because we don't usually see this many issues out of Daniel.
Turn 1 is clear.
Yeah, that's a good point. Certainly a possibility. Back to the leader, Jared Thomas, though. It should not come as a surprise to see him running at the front. You think back on all the close racing over the years in that MX-5 Cup Series, they had never had a repeat champion. No one had ever been a multi-time champion of that series ever until the last 2 years where Thomas went back-to-back. Give you some idea of just how good he is in single-meg competition, and it's translated perfectly into these 911 Cup cars.
Definitely tells a tale. As I was watching out the window here at the commentary box, Johnson and Bowden were only separated by about 0.4 of a second. The win for Masters, I don't think, is settled at all, especially if it gets down to the last lap or two and Bowden is able to cut down a car length or so on Joel. We could see a few aggressive moves for that win.
That's a great call. That's been a good fight all day long. Back even in qualifying, those two were super close together. And like I've said a few times, Bowden likes this place. He's had good results here in club-level racing, winning a national championship here, which is a special achievement for anyone who's involved in club racing. To be able to stand on the top of the box at the SCCA runoffs is massive. So he'll have that in his back pocket. He knows the track well. He knows what it takes to be successful here, and he's got the pace.
So Ashley Freiberg just set her personal best last lap, 50.6. That's 0.2 off of Paul Bocuse's fastest lap, and she's on far more worn tires.
Yes.
So you think she's got the red mist down a little bit?
I think so. What was once a 10-second deficit is now 5.5 seconds back to Conrad Geis. So 5 minutes to go. It kind of just depends on where the leaders are to come around and start another lap. I mean, I think we're looking at 3 more laps, maybe 4.
Yeah. We have to remember, too, it's plus 1 lap.
Right.
So that gives you at least a little bit more to try and fight here towards the end. But, yeah, as it's come down to those 2.4 seconds, she's going to have to hustle. We saw how hard it was for her to make those overtakes once she got to Therese Lelou. And with these two, she's had to use up so much stuff. I'm sure the rubber is going to be exhausted by the time she reaches them.
Yes, you would think so, but I'm not going to discount anything.
I won't either.
It's been a special day, and look, we told you in qualifying that we need to keep an eye on her. She's going to be the show, and that's definitely been the case.
All right, we come back to Ashley. There you can see just up ahead that little speck in the distance. That is Conrad Geis currently, who's been hassling David Musial. That's also gotten a little bit closer, down to 0.3 of a second. By that stage, he could try and send one in if he finds himself with a good run out of one of the corners. There, yeah, look at how close they are. But Ashley,
yeah,
it's gone from a speck to now a very obvious car in front of the windscreen.
Well, it was 5 seconds on the previous lap. She cut 2.5 seconds off of it. Ooh. It's only 2.4, so you keep that going, and even my math tells me, yeah, she's got time.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So question is, what can she do now that she has caught them? Can she make the overtake? Because if she gets by both, that's actually a podium.
Right? It is in play. And that's what she needs to salvage this day. It has been a trying weekend. Really not the weekend, just the qualifying session. And it's been amazing to watch her work her way back up through this field. She has now arrived. There will be time for at least 2 more laps here. I think there could be time for an additional one, too. That is great news for Ashley Freiberg. Car that Ashley started the season in, and if she hadn't been forced to seek funding and seek a new opportunity with Kelly Moss, that car might not have been available for Conrad. So what a strange sequence of events.
Even, and I don't think we've seen a podium from Conrad up to this point. And he is going to hold that right-hand side of the track down into the roller coaster, preventing any chances.
You're exactly right. Conrad's best finish this season, 4th, race 2 at Circuit of the Americas. So he's holding on to a glimmer of hope at his first podium finish of the season and of his career. He's brand new to this stuff too, lest we forget. Doing a really good job when you keep that in mind. Ashley Freiberg's been in this game for a decade plus, going back to a pretty sterling single-seater career that led to a transition to sports cars. She was out of it for quite some time, but last year came back, won that 991 championship, and here we go. Battle is on, Joe.
But it's not Ashley on Conrad. Conrad was trying to see if he could get by Dave Musial 2.0. Didn't manage to get by. Oh, and some contact. That's going to open the door for Ashley. Round the outside of the left hook. Got to be careful here. You can get squeezed off. And she's going to clip a little bit of the dirt and fall back behind. Things getting frantic now. So close to the end of the race. Don't throw it away here.
It'll be this lap and one more. Right back on the power, though, for Ashley Freiberg. You could see full tilt on the telemetry there. She's right now in the tire tracks of Conrad Geis, who has dropped off just that little bit from Dave Musial in the green car. White flag just got displayed to the race leader, Jared Thomas, but it's still in a lap and a half to go for this battle we're watching right here. This is 3rd, 4th, make that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Nope, it is 3rd, 4th, and 5th. In the Matt Pro-Am class.
And I'll tell you who is loving this right now. I think David Musial, having his rival be distracted, is helping him pull away just a little bit. I think he'll need some more to get fully free of these two. Ashley doesn't look like she's close enough coming up into the roller coaster. Maybe it'll have to be down into the horseshoe after they get that white flag, but that leaves her with precious little time to try and attack on Dave as well.
They'll see the white flag this time by. She's right there in the tire tracks, Joe. She's got him lined up. He's in the crosshairs. This is for 4th and 5th in the Pro-Am class.
She is practically pushing him down the main straight. Will he hold off to the right? Will he leave the door open as they come to the braking zone? He is going to leave the door open. They fly through the horseshoe. Let's watch the other side to see which order they come out in. Ashley is now into P4.
Wow, big move, and she's not done. To the outside she goes of Dave Musial into NASCAR Bend. Side by side, Ashley Freiberg working that outside line, and she'll take the 3rd spot on the final lap.
2 positions in 3 corners. That is something special. And you talk about her really needing to prove herself and maybe attract some sponsors. This race itself is a highlight reel.
Fantastic stuff. Amazing from Ashley Freiberg, able to track that battle down and then make the pass on the last lap. Now she just needs to hang on, so we turn our attention to the front of this field. Jared Thomas on the front straightaway, Joe, headed to the checkered flag.
A win for Jared Thomas, returning to the top step of the podium. It's going to be a bit of a gap before we get to Paul Bocuse, who will get himself another valuable second place as he crosses the line now. And how about Mark Bowden? Third overall and a win in Masters. He did get by Joel Johnson. And the 246, boy, he is some ways behind. I'm waiting for him to get here, actually. There he is, as now he comes by our commentary box, and he will claim victory.
What a remarkable final lap. We had a change for the lead in Masters, and we had third, fourth, and fifth all change hands on the final lap in the Pro-Am class. Musial did hold off, I think, Conrad Geiss. Or are we still waiting for them to come by? That might not be done just yet either, so we'll wait and see. Freiberg, Musial, Geiss, that is the finishing order. Wow, third, fourth, and fifth in Pro-Am came down to the wire, and now we wait on Niels Meissner.
Everyone, top three cars, 992 Pro-Am. Cars 296, 271, and 222. That's 296.
Indeed. And let's not forget about Tim Kesman, a podium. His previous two races at COTA, a 7th and a 6th. And now he jumps well up the order to be able to spray the champagne in that 218 car. What a showing from Tim, arriving late in this championship and proving that he has got good speed. So Niels Meissner as well. He takes the win in the 991s. Melito's going to be second and Thomas Herb in third. But we've got more racing coming, of course, with the podium celebrations in a little bit. Let's go over our finishing order in the meantime while we wait for the cars to head into Parc Fermé for this first race of the GT3 Cup Series and Porsche Sprint Challenge North America. Wow, that one definitely stayed green and action-filled all throughout, and Jared Thomas is going to come away your winner over Paul Bocuse, finishing P2. Bowden is not on your Pro-Am podium. He is your Masters winner, but third overall, as Joel Johnson also follows him home second in the Masters. Tim Kesman will be third in that same class. Ashley Freiberg lost her qualifying laps, came from literally the back of the field to the class podium, and sixth overall. David Musial was P7. Conrad Geiss was in eighth, and it's John Gilliland ninth, and Niels Meissner, as we mentioned, your provisional winner in the 991s, Ryan.
Wow, what a day. As we look back at the rest of the provisional finishing order, Therese Laloux comes home 11th. I think overall she'll be pretty pleased with that. Rob Walker, Tony Melito. We'll see what happens with the incident that's going to be reviewed between Meissner and Melito. That could still change hands, but as it stands, at least on the road, Melito will take home second. Jody Miller, Dave Musial Sr., Frank Vitiello, Eric Lapp, Shane Leathers, Scott Blend had an up-and-down day, unfortunately ending on the downside of that equation, and Grady Willingham back in the 20th position provisionally, with a lot of things still to be determined by our stewards post-race here at VIR. Well, if you liked that show, the good news is we've got another one coming your way tomorrow. This is only race one of two this weekend for Porsche Sprint Challenge North America and the GT3 Cup class. Class is, I should say. Race two scheduled for 11:45 local time here in the Eastern time zone. Again, another 35-minute plus one-lap sprint to close out the weekend. We've got a Cayman race coming up at 9 a.m. tomorrow, too. 35 minutes plus one lap, of course, as we put a bow on Saturday here at Virginia International Raceway. Don't go anywhere. We've got podium celebrations coming up here shortly. Congratulations to your class winners, including your overall winner, Jared Thomas, who wins for the sixth time in 7 races this season. He's got a strong grasp on the points lead in 992 Pro-Am. Niels Meissner winning on the road in the 991 class and in 992 Masters. Mark Bowden on the final lap, able to take the lead and take the victory. We'll hear from them and a whole lot more with our podium celebrations in just a few moments.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy.
WeatherTech.
Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com. It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy.
WeatherTech.
Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
It's time for our podium ceremonies for the GT3 Cup Series, starting off with our 991 podium finishers. In third today, in the number 161, it's Thomas Herb. Finishing P2, driving the number 127, it's Tony Melito. And our winner today, in the number 152, adding to his tally, Niels Meissner. Niels, congratulations on the win. Let me step up next to you. Great stuff. You found yourself having to fight from second place, though. Once you got in the lead, how did it feel? Was it pretty comfortable from there?
I wouldn't say comfortable. I know Tony had quite a bit of pace, and when I saw that early opportunity, I had to capitalize on it. And from there, it was just trying to keep any sort of defense in the form of 992s between us, and I managed to do that.
You guys look a little bit worn out. Was it pretty hot in the car?
Not Coda bad, but it's pretty warm.
Looks like it. You guys deserve some refreshment. Congratulations on the win. That's our victors in the 991 class showing off their trophies. And of course, if it was hot out, why don't we cool down with some champagne? Congratulations to our podium. That brings us to the 992 Masters. Finishing third today in the number 218, Tim Kesman. Continuing with his excellent run of finishes in P2, it's the number 227 of Joel Johnson. And with a late race pass to take the victory, driving the number 246, first place is Mark Bowden. Congratulations, Mark. It was a great race out there. You had a lot of competition for screen time with so much action going on. Why don't you tell us about that pass for the win?
Well, you know, I was behind Joel, and he's fast, and I'm just like, I got to stick with him. My windshield I could barely see because it's full of dirt from going up the S's. It's so tight on him. But I saw his tires are going away a little bit. He was struggling at Oak Tree, and finally he just got a little bit wide, and it was my opportunity, and I got to get by him, and first win of the year.
Well, not only that, you're on the overall podium. That's got to feel good as a Masters driver with old age and treachery proving itself.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I'm up with these guys yet, but, you know, love racing here. Thanks to Yokohama for a great tire, Porsche, of course, and the Fall Line guys always give a great car. Thanks, everybody.
Congratulations. Great stuff here from our winner, Mark Bowden. With the photos out of the way, our 992 Masters can now spray the champagne. Congratulations to the 992 Masters podium finishers. And now it's time for our 992 Pro-Am podium. Impressively charging from the very back of the field in the number 222, it's Ashley Freiberg in third. Then coming home, P2, driving the number 271, Paul Bokus. And our winner, an impressive 13-second lead at the end. In the number 296, it's Jared Thomas. Congratulations, Jared. We saw you run away a little bit once again after Kodo. Does that feel for you?
Yeah. Some improvements. We're always going back to the drawing board to figure out how we can make our car better. And here with the tire fall off and how hot the racetrack gets, that's what we really targeted.
On the broadcast, we talked about how busy of a schedule you and your teammates have had. How do you manage that and still be so dominant here?
Coffee and water.
Sounds like a good combo. Well, let's add champagne to that mix, as that's your winner here today, Jared Thomas. Our wonderful trophies for the 992 Pro-Ams. And how about some champagne, too? Congratulations to the 992 Pro-Ams in the GT3 Cup. We'll be back tomorrow with more racing. In the morning, we'll have Cayman Race 2. Stick around here at Virginia International Raceway.